Hi, Richard Horowitz here, Dr. H, with Family Centered Parenting. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about temperament and what that means and why that's so important in our parenting journey. And just a quick reminder, I would appreciate, I think it'd be a good idea to check out our first video in the series, which gives you a little bit of the overall approach and why family-centered parenting is an overall philosophy of parenting. And as I state in the cover of my book, this is the only parenting book you'll ever need. And I know that sounds a little bit arrogant, but the reason I say that is because we approach the parenting journey with an overall parenting philosophy so that when we make our individual parenting decisions, it's not based on hit or miss or maybe this is what was done in the past, my parents did, but we approach our parenting decisions from a particular point of view, from a philosophy, from an overall approach. So today I want to talk about something very important to recognize, and that's temperament. Now, the literature has shown that our children and all of us are born with certain hardwired characteristics that are part of who we are, our personality, regardless of environment. And those are, for example, the first one would be extroversion or introversion. Now, some of us are naturally more extroverted, some of us are more naturally introverted. And when I use the word naturally, I mean that strongly. It's a tendency, not an absolute. There are degrees. There's total extroversion, total introversion, somewhere in the middle. Some people are both extroverted and introverted, depending upon circumstance. But overall, your approach in that particular dimension is something that you're born with. And I just should add, about 40 to 50% of what our kids bring to the table at birth is already hardwired. So as much as I am the parenting expert and give parenting advice, I also am humble enough to recognize that we as parents maybe contribute to about 50% of the purple outcomes of how our children develop and grow up in the world. So we have to keep that in mind. We got to do our best as parents, but we have to remember that it's not the whole ball of wax. Some of the things our kids are born with. So I mentioned extroversion and introversion. The other one I'd like to mention is optimism versus pessimism. And we know, and we all know the old cliche, the glass is half full, the glass is half empty. That tendency to see the world either half empty or half full is something we're born with. It's part of our basic personality. We're kind of hardwired to see that. So that's another aspect of temperament that we should be aware of. The third aspect, which again is hardwired, is risk-taking. Some of us are naturally high risk takers, some of us are naturally low risk takers, and some of us are in between. But the degree we're naturally take on our role as risk taker is something we're hardwired with. So keep in mind that we have these tendencies in our children that they're born with, that's part of their basic personality. Now, two things come to mind. First is to be mindful and to understand our child's temperament so that we make decisions based on what we think is and what we've seen to be their temperament. The second important thing is, and what leads to sometimes problems in parenting, is when their child's temperament is different from their parents'. This is especially acute when it comes to introversion and extroversion. For example, you might have a child who has just one or two close friends, likes to spend time reading, being on their own, taking long walks, enjoying nature. A kind of child who's by nature temperamentally introverted. And you have a parent who's temperamentally extroverted. They talk on the phone, they do a lot of texting, they're constantly going out with friends, meeting friends, FaceTiming, all the different ways, Facebooking, actively Facebooking, all the different ways that we want to reach out, connect with a lot of people, be in constant contact. Now, sometimes the extroverted parent will look at their introverted child and feel there's something wrong with them. Mary, how come you don't have more friends? I wish you'd get out more and meet more people. And maybe it's just not natural for Mary to be that way. Maybe it's more natural to her to only have a few friends. So, as a parent, when you see that difference in personality type between yourself and your child, take a deep breath, respect their differences, and monitor their well being. Then you know if they're comfortable that way. So, if your child of Anita is tends to be just quiet, have very few friends, but she's happy, a happy child, content, not showing any signs of stress, then she's comfortably introverted. However, if you notice that Anita was unhappy and miserable because she didn't have enough friends and not active socially, then, an intervention, then it's time to problem solve. So get to know our child's temperament, get to know the signs when they're not comfortable and things aren't working, and then we'll better be able to respond. Same thing in risk taking. If you have a child who's climbing all over the apparatus at a playground and, willing to jump on anything and try anything for the first time, then our job as parent is just to monitor and keep them safe. And if you're a non-risk taking parent, then you might be more apt to say, be careful, don't do that. Amelia, please don't jump, don't leap off that, don't do that. And you might be too aggressive in worrying about their safety because you're a non-risk taker and their child is a high-risk taker. So monitor it carefully. And if your child is naturally not a risk taker and you are, respect that. Show them how to take sizable risks, what to do first to make sure before. Maybe they need to check things out more carefully. Maybe before they climb up to the top of the apparatus in the playground, maybe they need to watch another child do it first and be reassured. So instead of just pushing them, go do that, or getting angry and saying, what's the matter with you? All you want to do is sit around, not try something. We'll try to cope and find more safe ways to do that. So again, it's respecting our child's temperament. Another thing that I've read a while back, which really resonated with me, was this concept of some children are daffodils and some kids are orchids. And what do we mean by that? Well, if we think about a daffodil, it's basically a weed. It could grow anywhere. It can put up with pretty harsh conditions. Well, some of our kids are a little daffodil. We have parents, still have a lot to do, but sometimes we can take some shortcuts. We can get away with maybe not modeling as well or doing something not consistent with good parenting. And you know what? No big deal. Because our kids are naturally resilient. They kind of adapt pretty quickly. Their temperament is a little bit easygoing, and you could do that. And some of our kids are born more delicate. We call them orchids, like a flower who tends to need a lot more care. Conditions have to be just right. And sometimes we have kids that are more like that. And it means that the parenting journey, we have to be more mindful, a little bit more precise, a little bit more exacting in what we do, because we know our children are naturally, their temperament is to require that. They require that little extra parenting, a little extra guidance, a little extra assurance, a little understanding. So again, it's respecting the temperament of our children and being very, very careful that when their children are doing or expressing something that's contrary to our way of being, that we have to respect that. I'm going to give you one personal example before I close. One of my sons when he was between middle school and high school. He was a ample-sized boy, big boy, strong, basically fairly athletic, outgoing, somewhat risk-taking, and he liked playing football, and I love playing football. And unfortunately, I went to a high school that didn't have a football team, so I never was able to participate in really highly organized football. So between middle school and high school, my son went to this football camp run by the high school coaches. He did very well. And at the end of camp, I said, wow, you must be really excited. They're all anxious to see you on the freshman football team, and they think you'll be a starter and do real well. And I was really excited for him. And then he said to me, Dad, I don't think I want to play high school football. How could you not want to play high school football? It's totally contrary to some of the things that I thought was important based on my childhood and upbringing. And then he said, look, Dad, I really started into music now. I'm starting drum lessons. That seems much more important for my time, and I'd really like to spend time on that. So I had to bite my tongue, and instead of pushing him and listening and respecting, I encouraged his drumming, did get him his first drum kit, and I'm able proudly today, he is a very successful drummer in a pretty well-known rock band. So again, respecting the temperament of our children is so, so important. So I'll leave you with that reminder, Family-Centered Parenting, the book, available on Amazon, more detail on our website, familycenteredparenting.com. And also, I'm available for parent coaching on an individual basis. Contact me. We will can have an initial, at no cost, parenting consult. And if you're interested, we can continue the parenting journey with me acting as your parenting coach. So for now, take care and look forward to seeing all of you again. Bye-bye.